All right. How's everybody doing? My name is Chuck Earls. I am the only licensed Lake Erie kayak fishing guide. I teach multi-species, primarily walleye, steelhead. We do get into some smallmouth. We chase catfish, sheephead. The point is to get out there and just enjoy Lake Erie on a kayak safely. So I teach how to get the fish. I also teach how to do it safely. In this presentation, I just basically wanted to go through some of the options and some of the available species that you can target when you're getting out on Lake Erie. First thing I want to talk about is big water kayak safety. That's the most important thing. If you're going to get out on the water on a day, you might get in a situation like this. You get into a little bit rougher water where your kayak is actually dropping below the water surface, or at least visually. So that's why if you look, I have that bright yellow safety flag on there. That way people can identify me, they can see me from far away, and the boats can see me. So basically, when you get to the launch, first thing you want to do is go through your kayak, inspect everything, make sure there's no cracks, there's no loose bolts, there's nothing that's going to put you in a dangerous situation out on the big water. Secondly, grab your PFD. Do not leave shore without this thing. This is going to save your life. Don't put it behind you, put it on you. If you don't want to wear this on the water, one piece of advice, jump in the water, walk off the boat ramp, and try to put it on after you're in the water. Then you'll realize why you should wear it. If it's not comfortable, buy a better one. This is going to save your life out there. Next thing, obviously, is to carry a VHF radio. That way you can communicate with your other anglers on the water, as well as the boats. Any kind of boats that are in the area. I use the standard Horizon HX890. There's many VHF radios on the market. The important part is to get a VHF and not just the standard marine radio. After that, you're going to leave, obviously, your float plan with your loved ones. Let them know where you're launching, when you plan on being back. Because what's going to happen is you get sucked into fishing, an hour goes by, now your wife's calling you, hey, John, where are you? Oh, you're still fishing? Okay, well, let me know when you get back to the water. Now, the flip side of that is something happened, you're out there by yourself. Your wife expects you to be calling her or back to the ramp at 8 p.m. While 8 p.m. comes, nothing happens. She gives you a half hour, 9 p.m. comes, now she's calling you, she can't get a hold of you. Now she knows exactly where to send the rescuers to come and look for you, because you could be in some very serious danger. So that's why the float plan is very important. Now, with that being said, always going out with a buddy. If you get into a dangerous situation, a buddy is going to definitely be able to back you up. And if you haven't already, exchange emergency contact information. I cannot stress this enough. So back about 3 years ago, I went to meet a buddy on the river to do some kayak fishing. I showed up, they were loading him into the ambulance, and I realized I did not have any way to communicate to get a hold of his wife. I didn't even know who his wife was. So now I'm panicking because my buddy's getting loaded in the ambulance. He's unconscious. He had a massive heart attack. The fire department, the police department, they don't know, or they might know who to contact, but they're definitely not telling me. You know, so exchange the emergency contact information, because there might be that point where you have to call them and, you know, let them know that something happened, there's a situation, you need to meet me at the hospital, or you need to meet me here, or hey, John's having an issue. Is there a medical emergency that he has, a medical situation that I don't know about? You know, so once you get all that, you get set up, now you're ready to get offshore. But there's one more factor, the cold water. So up to 6 months out of the year, the cold water is going to be deadly. So you want to have some kind of thermal protection, some kind of protection to keep you safe out there, a dry suit, the proper underlayers. You can check out my YouTube channel. I have great videos on what to wear underneath your dry suit, how to put on a dry suit, why you need a dry suit, and all those cold water safety factors. So search YouTube for Chuck Earls. Go over and check that stuff out. So with that being said, now we're prepared to be safe. Now we're going to focus on the actual species. So most common species to target. You have walleye, steelhead, smallmouth, largemouth, yellow perch, white perch, channel catfish, white bass, bluegill, crappie, and even sheep's head. Now, many people think sheephead are, you know, trash fish. They're kind of a hassle, but at the end of the day, I've never seen anybody not smiling after landing sheephead. They're just a fun time. They fight like crazy. So the first species, obviously, is walleye. There are 4 main techniques to identify or to target the walleye. Obviously, casting, drifting, trolling, and jigging. The important thing to consider if you're going to get out there and you're going to cast, pay attention to the wind direction. Get out there, get yourself some distance so you're not being blown down the shoreline and past your launch point. And then after you're done fishing, you look at your GPS and you're like, hey, I'm 10 miles away from my launch point. Well, now you got to go 10 miles into the wind. Depending on the wind speed, you might have to let it push you further down shore and have somebody pick you up. But that's something that you want to consider when you're out there casting or drift fishing. So what we do is we troll into the wind, we locate the fish. If we want to stop and cast on them, we have that distance where we can actually drift and not just be blown down the shoreline away from our launch point. The next species is going to be your steelhead trout. Steelhead are great like October till April. The harbors, the rivers, you can target them then. The most important thing to remember with steelhead is you should have some cold water safety gear out there to target them. Many ways to target them. You can troll stick baits or plugs. You can float egg sacs. You can float hair jigs and a minnow, or even hair jigs and wax worms. All great presentations. Put it under a float and just let it run down the run. Steelhead fight very, very aggressively, and they're just a fun species to target. Next species, Lake Erie footballs, smallmouth, largemouth bass. We're not really going to talk about largemouth too much. The smallmouth, so mid-May, late June, smallmouth are going to be spawning. The further east that you move, the later they're actually going to be spawning. So in the western basin, up by the islands, up by the reefs and stuff, they're going to start spawning mid to late May, maybe even early May, depending on the water temperatures. The further east you move towards Cleveland, towards the eastern basin, these fish are going to be starting to spawn a little bit later, and they're going to be spawning in deeper water as well. A couple of hot spots for the smallmouth obviously is up by the islands. Any of those reef structures, Clinton Bay, Cowley's Island, anywhere near shore like that, smallmouth fishing is phenomenal. Now, all year long you can get out there and target the largemouth. The smallmouth, they're going to be, when the water gets warm, they're going to kind of move offshore. They're going to be a little bit harder to locate, but you can always go after the largemouth at that point. Presentation-wise for them, you're basically throwing tube jigs, you're throwing Ned rigs. You know, you want to think about what are they feeding off of. They're feeding off of gobies, they're feeding off of minnows, they're feeding off crayfish. So they're going to be picking stuff off at the bottom. Your tube jigs, your Ned rigs, that's going to resemble your crayfish, going to resemble your goby. The next species is yellow perch. In the central basin, our yellow perch population is kind of diminished, and a lot of it is because we have so many predatory fish in the system. What are they eating? Well, they're eating yellow perch. So the central basin, the yellow perch, is kind of few and far between. If you're going to target yellow perch, you're going to go to western basin or even the eastern basin out by Ashtabula. Great yellow perch population out there. Cool thing with yellow perch, you can target them multiple ways. You can target them with little blade baits. You can target them with like a perch rig or a crappie rig. Drop an emerald shiner down there and just pull them up. You know, 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish at a time. Just have a good time. One of the species that is becoming a lot more popular on Lake Erie, obviously, is the channel catfish. Some of the channel catfish that we have are very, very substantial. I mean, you're talking 30, 32-inch channel catfish that they're going to put up a fight. And you might be fighting that fish for 10 to 15 minutes. That's a great time from a kayak. The cool thing is you can catch channel catfish while you're trolling for walleye. You can throw Erie dearies with a worm harness out there. You can even jig for them with like blade baits and stuff like that. Anything shiny, anything that smells like food, they're gonna come after. You can even just drift like dead baits with like cut bluegill or shrimp. Just drop a piece of shrimp down there. Great places to target channel catfish, obviously, is any kind of structure area, Sandusky Bay, some of the rivers. Lastly, you have your sheephead. With the sheephead, very big fish. These things get 32-3 inches. They fight like crazy, and they're very easy to target. Now, the cool thing about the sheephead and the catfish, you really don't have to go very far offshore to target these fish. You know, you're a quarter mile, half mile offshore, and you're going to be able to get into these fish and get that tug that you're looking for. Now, are you necessarily going to take a sheephead home and eat it? Well, maybe not. I have heard they're very good smoked. I have some clients that take them home, but the important part is this is a species that it's very hard fighting. It's an underrated species on Lake Erie that's very easy to get out and target. White bass. This is one of the bigger white bass from the year. This one was almost 17 inches. White bass are very fun. They're amazing fish to fry up and eat, and they're very easy to target. These fish are going to chase basically anything shiny. So anything that resembles a shiner or minnow, you drop a blade bait down, drop a twister tail on a jig head, even spoons, casting spoons or anything like that. And even sometimes they will hit the trolling baits. And lastly, your crappie and bluegill. Crappie are kind of hard to find. You know, they're obviously going to move offshore once the water starts to get a little warm. So for crappie, spring, fall, get in the rivers, anywhere where there's docks, there's a little bit of brush piles, some laydowns, you're going to find those crappie in there. And basically what you're going to do to target them is you're going to throw on like a 1/16 ounce chartreuse jig head tipped with like a half emerald shiner, or even a wax worm or something like that. You can drop that down on them. The Rapala jigging wraps, the smaller ones, those work great. Drop it down, bounce it off the bottom, and just make it mimic and act like a bait fish. The blade bait's the same way. Drop it down, bounce it off the bottom, you're going to create that plume of smoke, and then you're going to rip it up a little bit, and it's and it just creates that attractant that draws those fish in. And obviously, crappie rigs work great as well. So with the crappie rigs, that's something you're probably going to have for your perch fishing too. You can put the crappie rigs on there and get down there and jig them. So these are just some of the fish that some of my clients have got. Mainly we go out and target walleye. There's a lot of other species that we catch in the process. You know, so it's cool. Like we go out and we target walleye. Maybe you get a couple of white bass to take home. Maybe you get to play with the catfish. Maybe you catch a fish Ohio drum or something like that. But the important thing to think about is these are all different species that you can focus on and you can target, especially in the middle of summer where the walleye might be 2, 3, 4 miles offshore. You know, so you can go a half mile offshore and just drop down and play with the sheephead. You know, and that's good enough. That's a great time. So if you want to book a trip, you can head over to my website, LakeErieKayakFishing.com, and check out all my resources there. You can reach out to me on the phone. It's 216-296-9157. Before you book a trip on my website, just reach out to me. We'll get a date set in, get that all dialed in, and then we'll get you locked into the calendar. Aside from that, I am the cold water kayak fishing expert in the area, so if you have any questions on getting into a dry suit or doing it safely, you know, just reach out to me. I'm a community resource. Even if you don't come out and book a trip with me, reach out to me, ask me questions. I'll get to you as soon as I can, and I'll assist you to do it safely. Well, that's all I got for you. Thanks for stopping by today. I will actually be back on this stage 10:30 in the morning tomorrow, also at 7:30 p.m. And then we're going to be in the kayak pool doing the cold water kayak safety, I believe at what, noon? So all kinds of presentations. Stop by the Cleveland Boat Show, check us out. Stop by my booth 429 and say hi. I got Jeff Little hanging out with me from the Little Stuff YouTube channel. definitely hit that subscribe button and check him out. And I'll see you guys on the next video.